Good afternoon. Hopefully you can see me. Everything says I'm live here, although there's been some indication on the chat that some old stream might be playing. So hopefully you've got the right one now. Just for the avoidance of doubt, it's the 20th of May right now at 1 p.m. Chicago. So yeah, an iguana shirt. If you can see me wearing an iguana shirt, it's a chameleon shirt. You're on the wrong stream. Alright, I need to stop talking in the chat and talk with my mouth. So, the story so far is everything we've been doing and talking about over the last nearly 3 weeks now is live on the main site, which is fantastic. So if we go to godbolt.org right now, we wait for it to load, and I apologise for the loud trucks that are around. I think there's some resurfacing of the alleyway outside my house, which would be nice, but is very loud. So we're live now with everything we've been talking about, which means all the compilers are being run through FireJail, and the site itself is not running in Docker. There is in fact no Docker installed on any of the machines. If I type Docker on one of these machines, command Docker not found. How amazing! How amazing is that? We've been slave to it for far too long. Oh, I'm glad to hear. Oh, so someone's saying that Chromecast is playing the right, was playing the wrong one, but now it's playing the right one. So Chromecast, unfortunately, is a bit of a funny one. I've had problems with all my Chromecasts doing weird things. I don't know if Google pay too much attention to what the heck's going on with Chromecasts. But I'm glad you can't hear the trucks. I have got the microphone on like cardioid, only straight in front of it mode. So hopefully that's why you can't hear it, but I certainly can. It's driving me a bit crazy. But we're sort of today... We're clearing up a little bit of the remaining mess. We had a problem this morning about Boost not being available. Anyone who tuned in whenever I last streamed, we had an issue with the compilers not starting. Sorry, with the Compiler Explorer site not starting at the right time and was in the boot up of the machine, which meant that some of the stuff that it needed wasn't around, or that it crashed out. So we changed that, and everything's a lot better. But unfortunately, there was still a race. There's still a race in it, in as much as it wasn't waiting until the network file system was ready, which meant that one of the earlier steps inside the startup failed. I fixed that this morning, deployed it, and now Boost is working. So that's nice to noise cancelling headphones. Yes, at work I usually have noise cancelling headphones, but I don't actually have my own pair of them. I've got these relatively nice Sennheisers here, but they're not noise cancelling. They're open back, which means that I don't feel too silly. I can still hear what other people are saying, which is often a feature. But when you're working in a loud environment, which this isn't usually, I certainly get the noise cancelling bit. But anyway, back to today's hope. Right. Well, what I was really hoping to do today was to enable the execution on at least the beta site. And we may still get there. We've got a couple of hours, and I have a few things that I really want to do. So 2 new things have cropped up since the last time. People have been using the site, and they've noticed that things have changed. I've fixed a few minor things, but the 2 ones are here are that DMD always shows error during processing. So DMD is the one of the D language compilers, and funny sort of thing about the D language is, not many people use it, as you might imagine, but it sort of has a special place in my heart because D was the first language that we added after C++. The reason for that was Andrei Alexandrescu was actually visiting my company giving a series of talks, and they were about performance and stuff. This is while he was at Facebook, and he was talking about various things, and this was many, many years ago. It's like 2012. I was giving him a hard time in the audience. I'm a bit of a put my hand up kind of sit at the front of a lecture kind of a person, and certainly where are things that I thought that I knew more than him, I was sort of saying, I think it works this way, and he was like, oh, maybe, and we looked at it. Anyway, there was some friendly banter between the two of us, and then towards the end of the lectures, he said, I think there's some website you can type your code into and you get some idea about what the assembly is. And at that point, I started blushing, and this was before Compiler Explorer was well known at all. And all my colleagues started laughing and pointing at me, and we ended up having a long conversation about Compiler Explorer. He said, hey, could we add D language to that? And so that evening I put DLanguage in. So anyway, I've got a sort of special place in my heart for DLanguage as the first non-C++ language supported. And I have fixed the first issue with the D stuff not working. So when we're now isolating processes, we have to be a bit more careful about which files it relies upon. So there was some code in the where are we? DMD.js there. Let's find, if I show you what this used to look like, if the IDE would like to tell me. Yeah, so this piece of code, it's probably not very easy to see here, is that for whatever reason, and I didn't actually add this particular part, so we've had some really excellent help from both the regular contributors, you know, Ruben and Pantouf, and also there are some people who are just adding stuff because they care about a particular language, and D is one of those languages. So I don't know actually where this piece of code came from originally, but it looks like it was trying to find a relative output directory a relative path for whatever -L is doing in this post-process step. Now, I'm sort of sketching around, and this is printf debugging style to find this. Obviously, the path that's relative to the current working directory of the node system is no longer the relative directory when we're running inside a chroot jail, inside the fire jail. So that had to change. So what I've replaced it with is, instead, I get the base name of the output file name, and I get the L path as being I get the directory path. Oh, excuse me. And then the actual file name path. And I specifically tell the execution system to run with the current working directory being the directory where the library is, or whatever the L is, -L. That means that I can just use a relative path being just the file name, because that's the current directory, and that will work both in terms of a local execution where we just cd to that directory and then run it, and a fire jailed execution where the current directory is the only directory we can see on the machine. Yeah, Andrei's awesome. He's a lovely chap. I've spoken to him a number of times now, and yeah, he's introduced me to a number of really interesting people. We're very lucky to have such excellent luminaries in our industry, and even though he's only got like 1 foot in the door in C++ these days, I particularly like seeing excuse me, I've got some milk this time, so I've actually got a decent cup of tea. I particularly like the fact that there's a lot of cross-pollination happening between the various conferences now. We'll have people from the Rust community and the D language community talking at C++ conferences and vice versa, which is great. I mean, I think it's fair to say that some of the more recent developments in C++ have probably come from a gentle kick up the bottom by sort of comparing ourselves with both D and Rust. So that's pretty cool. And obviously, Andrei is a legend in his own right before even he moved over to more of the D world. So anyway, yes, this fixed the first problem. So that meant that we no longer got the error message. So I'm running this locally, and I wonder if I'm still running that. Am I still running it? No. This is what happens when you are... There, we'll run it locally. Drum roll. Oh, excuse me, clicking my knuckles there. Terrible habit. So we have here a somewhat... Oh, still not ready. Come on. There we are. A somewhat working version of the D output. So now that D execution is working just fine. The thing that isn't working is the DMangling. So you're probably aware that when you compile something... Let me just show you anything. And I'll do this in C++, but it's true of many languages. So let's just go bi-tump test.cc. Oh, look. Done this before. Let's do int, or let's do class C... And we're going to have int func const returns 2, and then just to make sure it instantiates it, I'll make one of those, and we're going to go g++ test.cc minus o1 minus s minus o dash. So we're just going to output that straight. Oh, and it didn't actually generate any code, of course. Let's get rid of the o1, o0. Oh, come on now. What have I done wrong? You'd think I'd have got this working. Oh, I suppose I actually have to call that function. So let's just have int test c amp c c.func Oh, and that'll have to be const now. Land of primitive. No return statement. That's warnings. So much for a quick demonstration, right? Oh, and I can't even type. I'm using VI here because I've got my VI crib sheet mug that I'm drinking out of today. So let's return there, and then hopefully, come on, this should compile. Decline private. Live demos, right? Let's just turn this into a struct. Hooray! Okay, so we actually built it and compiled it, and we can see that the labels that are coming out look like this. Anything that refers to a particular instance of a function has to, because the linker and the operating system only support ASCII style label names, or symbol names. So that's underscores, capitals, lowercase, and numbers. Yeah, that would work as well, Ouroboros, I think, probably instantiating. But I didn't actually call the function, so maybe the compiler still wouldn't emit it. Who knows? The commands are pretty good at not emitting code they don't need to, although MSVC emits everything all the time, which is a pain. So anyway, we've got some mangled code, mangled symbols here, and this is so that we get a unique name for every unique type of thing that's going to be generated in the object file. And in this instance, what that is encoding is both the name and the type of the function, so that if you define two different functions that have a different signature, then they would have different mangled names. And that's all well and good and great, but it's not really what you want to see when you're looking at a disassembly. So if we take that, there is thankfully in C++ a program called C++ Filt, whose only job is to take input and pipe it to the output. And in doing so, if it notices any of these mangled symbols, it replaces it with the demangled version. So if I'm going to run this chap, you should see that there we now have the name of, like, this test function here, and this size function here, and sorry, that's dot size of that particular thing, and this is just called C now. So all those horrible like underscore things have mostly gone. Not all of them. There's another one that's actually been missed out here, but C : func const has come out of that. So that's great. And each of the languages has their own different way of specifying what the rules are for mangling and correspondingly demangling them. So mangled names are the ones that have all of the things sort of smushed together, and demangled is where it's been broken apart into what you and I would write as programmers. So that sort of minor lesson apart, it's the D language has its own mangling and demangling system. And so this, for example, this underscore D7 example 12 double underscore module info Z is a mangled name. And what we do is we tear off each of the individual symbols that we suspect are mangled, and then we pipe them through the equivalent command, like be it C++ Filt or some defiltering, or actually I've noticed in going down this route that our Haskell demangler is also broken. So let me just write this down. So we're going to demangling on Haskell and D. We need to fix those. So why is this a problem? Right, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable running FireGel locally. I'm currently using FireGel locally so I could simulate the problem. So I'm just comment out execution type because FireGel in my execution local properties. That should actually restart. Compiler Explorer over there. It will take a little while. And if I then refresh this view here, once I've seen it, you'll notice this line 8, which has a mangled name in it, should become example._module info, and in fact this public up here is also. It hasn't worked here, which is sort of unfortunate. That's a separate bug, and that still exists on the site. So I'm not going to get into this anytime soon. That's a different issue, and I'm trying to minimize the amount of actual problems that I'm working on at a time. So anyway, here is our example. Sorry, this is our demangled symbol, and that's great. If in fact if I refresh this now, the web page has finished building on the right hand side. We're going to have a quick look at the debug, and the debug output when I've got --debug on tells me about every single thing that Compiler Explorer runs. So you can see here it is executing the DMD compiler itself, which exited okay. Then executing obj to asm, And again, this is some other internal aspect. I'm not actually sure what that's all about, but I'm not going to go down that route. Oh no, that's the thing that I fixed, right? Look, here it is with the args of -l output.s. So that's the thing we fixed earlier, which previously had a relative path which wouldn't work in FireGL, because what I would see in that args is ... /tump / something or other, which obviously doesn't work. And it runs in the current directory of the temporary files. And then finally we're seeing we're running oh no, that's the same again, that's the result, sorry. And then finally here we're running d/dmangle, and what will be happening is that various things will be piped into it. But you'll see that it exited because... Oh no, this did exit. It executed fine, and here are the results. Example, module info, new line, DSO registry at PLT, new line, RSP, new line, something like that. So we were firing into it a bunch of things that we wanted it to demangle, and line by line it was replying to us. Now, we used to just pass the whole thing through C++ filter or DMD filter or whatever, but there's a whole bunch of problems with that. And so we don't do that anymore, and I can bore you with details about that another time, perhaps. Mainly that's me covering from not actually remembering, I'll be honest with you. So this is working just peachily. And what is d/dmangle? That's actually something we build as part of the Compiler Explorer makefile. So let's just take a quick look inside here. If you define either GDC or DMD or LDC, then we enable D language support. And so when you run make, it actually builds a little D language program which does the demangling. So let's have a look at that. Oh, let's view it, in fact. So, a question in the chat was, would an automated test client that knew it's all the compilers and lives and samples comparing to an announcements reference to be useful? Yes, it would. And at one stage I had one of those. And in fact, if you look inside the Compiler Explorer image repo, there is a test directory, and in here is remote cases and remote test and all that kind of stuff, but it's just so noisy and so difficult to get right. I stopped checking it, I'll be honest with you. I mean, you just got billions upon billions of lines of code and things like that, and it would definitely be a better way of fixing this and developing some kind of confidence that everything was working okay. So I think I should probably spend some more time. So obviously, it's worth a go, but this remote test takes a long time to run, and obviously hammers the site. It actually does do one for every compiler, for every input source file, for a bunch of flags. In this particular case, given that like all of these different flags up here, these label filters themselves are combinatorial in terms of like, well, what if we break the label filtering? What if we don't demangle? If I didn't demangle, for example, then we wouldn't have seen this problem. So there's a smoke test quality to it. Hello, Greece. It's like the Eurovision, isn't it? Hello, Greece. What are your points? So yes. Having a test that does that would be great, and certainly a more comprehensive one than I currently have would be ideal. And I haven't run it for a very long time, mainly because it takes like 20 minutes. It takes 20 minutes to run, and I can only imagine how long it takes now. This was written a long time ago, and a lot has changed. But there may be a better way of doing it than checking in all of the expected files into source control. Maybe I should run them somewhere else. So anyway. Yes, that would definitely be a good thing, and if you wanted to work on it, I would be very happy to accept some help in terms of like maybe thinking of a better way of doing it than the way that I've already tried to do it. So here is the list. Here is the tiny piece of code that's running for the demangler in D. It just uses a standard library that's part of the D language to demangle. There is an equivalent for Haskell somewhere. Haskell demangle.hs, and it's the same kind of thing. So what's the problem with this? Well, first of all, it works locally because I actually have got GHC and LDC on my path, or I had done, which allowed me to build those files. So inside that D directory, we can see that there is a demangle executable in the D directory, which is great. The problem that we're going to have on the live site is that will not be available to the FireGL, which is kind of a problem. And you catch me at the point where I'm trying to work out how to solve that. So Zane has asked, is the making of SWAT Part 4 ever coming out? Yes. It's definitely something I would like to do. The most exciting and interesting parts are parts 4 and 5, and I have a blog post that covers most of the content that I need to do. I just need to sit down and record them, and I haven't gotten around to it. So yes, I will be finishing those videos probably next week, maybe. We'll see. It's amazing how much more effort it takes to do those sort of more professional quality looking well, edited, I suppose, videos than it is me just talking randomly over like slides and stuff. So I would like to finish it. I'd like to do it in a good service because I loved SWAT. It was good fun working on it. Is it possible to whitelist one executable in Fudger? Yes, it is. But let me talk about how this is all going to fit together. So first of all, as we execute here locally, is not the same way that we execute when we're on the site. So here, if I show you what my current directory is, it's /home/Matthew/dev. Now, by design, FireJail is going to run in a different home directory. That's kind of the isolation that we most importantly want. And by design, that home directory is the directory that the files that we want to execute modify are in. Now, when we're doing DMangling, we don't really have those files, so it's currently just set to a new, fresh, empty home directory, which means immediately we lose any ability to run the executables that are in that D directory, in this home directory. Now, that's one problem. The second problem is that on the real instances, such as here, this is one of the staging instances, the files get put into /compiler-explorer.deploy. And this directory has like D, so we've got D, DMangle, moo, right, lovely. And we have Haskell, DMangle, along with all these crazy libraries as well, moo. Obviously, moo is not a mangled name, so by default the DMangler emits the same thing that it saw coming in. Now, if I knew what a mangled symbol would look like, I could paste one in and we could see that it was working, but that's not actually it. So we can see two things. One, this D directory has one single DMangle executable, which is great. And this other directory has a whole bunch of stuff in here. In fact, a non-trivial amount. How much have we picked up here in the Haskell directory? 106 megabytes. That alone is interesting to me, that 106 megabytes of this are the runtime of Haskell. Now, I'm not entirely sure we need all of that, which is another separate problem, because these executable bundles that I generate when the Travis continuous integration server runs are getting bigger and bigger, and one of the reasons may be because of things like this. So let's just take a moment to work out what's going on here. So apparently it really does use all of those things, which is terribly unfortunate, don't you think? So according to the dynamic information, it needs all the things that are in here. libffi as well, yeah, librt. Well, that's sad. I guess that's because Haskell is dynamically typed, and so a lot of this stuff it doesn't know that this particular executable doesn't need, but we're kind of stuck with it. So anyway, I don't know if we can statically link the Haskell runtime. I don't know if we can. So I'm back on my local machine here. Let's have a look and see. Here's the makefile that builds it. And yeah, there. In fact, this is that line there is totally and utterly shamelessly copied from like every other project I've ever worked on that uses dynamic linking. It is the thing that says, "Hey, copy all the things that LDD says this particular thing depends upon." Now, there's a dash dynamic here, and clearly some rpath nonsense going on. So it's entirely feasible this is going to be a hiding to nothing. Anyway. We can talk about why it's still going to be a problem, ignoring how giant the runtime is and all of that nonsense that goes with it. So when we run executables in Compiler Explorer, we really, really want those executables to start in whatever the current working directory of the new jailed current working directory. So if I run FireJail, for example, and say ls, what's really going to happen is I'm going to do private equals /tump/ something or other, something ls. Right, so let's go make dir temp something. And inside there, I'm going to touch something hello. So you notice that ls is still picking up the directory listing of this directory here. And that's okay, but I really want it to start. I want the executable to start in the directory that I have just created. Now, the way that we're currently doing that is we're relying on a nasty side effect of if we blacklist whatever the current directory is. So if I do -- blacklist / compiler explorer image, I have to do equals, don't I? Equals. Now we're seeing that it's running in, and if I run firejail with -- quiet so that we don't get all of the nonsense around it. Now it's starting in the directory, the private home directory. Now, of course, I could do something like bash -c cd home Ubuntu, which is where it's going to be, and ls. And now I don't need to blacklist this. Fabulous. So that's a solution, possibly. This was discovered the other day. If I go into my stand.inc, this big, this is an anti-pattern. Every time that you have a giant explanatory comment for something which is otherwise sort of unjustifiable, then we're probably doing something wrong. So obviously, if we were to not blacklist / compiler explorer image, then in theory we can just run / compiler explorer image .deploy DMangle and / compiler explorer image .deploy Haskell DMangle directly, and we're golden. But that's not working. Of course, another thing would be to actually change the current working directory before I even execute firejail. So, if I were to go to just the root directory or some other known to not be mapped, a temporary directory, for example, then, or indeed the target directory we want to go to, then that would also fix this problem. But for the fact that firejail itself is going to read some configuration files whose paths are relative to the current working directory, and it's so irritating that it doesn't really support that. So, like, for example, I want to tell it to use this execute.profile, which says include my standard inclusion in standard.inc here. And there seems to be no way to set the path that this comes from. So I either have to put the full path here, which obviously I can't do because I don't know where it's going to be installed in general, or I have to be in the right directory for this etc. firejail standard.inc. This is not like the root. This is not / etc. This is like this path here, etc. firejail standard.inc. So there's no kind of from my current directory thing. So I'm a bit of a quandary here, how to solve this. There's part of me that likes blacklisting this particular directory, although it's unnecessary. Yeah, why not install the demanglers in opt compiler explorer for the Amazon instances? I think that is the right thing to do. So the nice thing here is that as it currently stands, they are part of the deploy, and so if we update, they're part of the compiler explorer repository. So if we just make an innocuous change to the demanglers, when I do a next deploy, it comes for free. Whereas if we make it part of the regular installation in /opt, then it's a separate step. And so I've avoided that. But Pantoufel has made the extremely simple, straightforward solution that we could install them there instead, which would actually tidy up a bunch of things, wouldn't it? So what would that do? If we were to make them part of the image, they would live in /opt compiler explorer, and then they would live somewhere like here we've just got like node and stuff. I could just make a demangle directory, demanglers, and have them both in there. That would be great. Obviously them being on the shared network drive would be a bit slower, but I don't think that ship has already sailed, and we could always rsync them locally like we do for other things if we think that that's a problem. they would very quickly pick up speed as they would get cached, instantly. So that's definitely a good sign. The Compiler Explorer image here. Whoops. Compiler Explorer image. This would need to be taught how to upgrade the latest and greatest of the tool chains for those things. So at the moment we let's show you how Node, for example, comes down. Let's have a look at update compilers, install binaries, I think is where this comes from. So this is how Patch, Elf, Node, and some of the other tools get installed. So we could just install them the same way here. That would be definitely a good way of doing it. We'd have to work on that a little bit. But for now, I could just blanket copy the ones we currently have in the executables and put them in /opt compiler explorer. That wins for me because it's just so easy to do. And then we can come back and make an issue to make it a better process than that for installing them. Okay, I like that. I like that very much. Thank you, Pantufel. You're always... this time you were ahead of me and I wasn't preempting this at all. This also has a nice knock-on effect for... If we look at the travis.yaml here, we don't have to install half the universe that this Travis script is doing. So if you look at what's going on inside the etc. Oh, what was it? I've already forgotten it. Etc. scripts Travis. Etc. scripts Travis. All of this can go away, I think. Could also bind mount them similar to the wine workaround. Bind mount them where though? The problem is not where, because I could just put them in / here, or you mean bind mount them from the .deploy directory somewhere else as well. That's actually a possibility. We could actually have the .deploy be / current install or something dreadful like that. And then bind mount them in there. But I think this is probably a better way. We have so much going on here in terms of all of this work here is pretty much exclusively to install. Why do we need the Rust install? That's interesting. Maybe there's some. What have we got in the Rust directory here? I'm trying to remember. Do we have a demangler in here? I think we do. So we have a Rust demangler also. Let's go and check out that here. What is in bin? LVD bin Rust filt. So again, we have a Rust one as well. So that would mean all of those would go away, which would mean that site builds would go that much faster. At the moment, some of the time on our Travis continuous integration build is the fact that it's rebuilding all of these things and pulling down a half of Haskell each time, which seems like a bad trade. So setting up build cache. Oh, we have the build cache going on here. Okay, so apparently using the build cache speeds that up. Okay, so we've kind of that sort of ship has sailed. It only took 0.01 seconds to determine that there was everything we needed was already installed from the cache, but the build cache setup itself probably took a little while. It's not telling me. Oh, yeah, 18 seconds was just to set up that thing that we hopefully can get rid of. That's kind of nice. Okay, and then everything else is just regular tests and things. I'm happy with that. Yeah, so that seems like a good solution for now. Now, I don't think I'm going to bore you all with me fixing that. I'm going to instead take a card to do that. Separate card, listen to me, like card walls of things that we've got here. I am going to make an issue in Compiler Explorer image, which is to say move installation of binaries for GDC, no, not GDC, for D, Haskell of DMangle binaries from D, Haskell, and Rust into install binaries. Now this is kind of a naughty thing because I'm actually in the process of getting rid of the install binaries as they currently exist. I'm doing them with a bunch of Python stuff, but this is just a note. So we want to stop relying on per version builds of demanglers preferring them on opt compiler explorer demanglers. I'm gonna ... They will be manually copied there to start with, because they have changed exactly never in the whole history of the project. Okay, so that is pretty lovely. So let's hack that quickly. I'm going to log out of the staging node because it has no write access to that network drive, and now we have we're on the admin node, which does have write access. So ls-l opt compiler explorer top opt compiler explorer, and it's all, some of them are owned by Ubuntu, some are owned by root. I need to change this, it's not the best, but let's do sudo mkdir opt compiler explorer, and we called it demanglers. Lovely. So we now have a nice directory that we're going to put our demanglers in. I am now going to go directly to S3 and grab the latest version of that tarball, untar it into /tump, and move those directories manually out, which is, you know, good enough for me for now. That's not the right place. Let's go to AWS. These are all public as well. It's just I can't remember what the URLs are. I'm really just trying to get past this bit so we can get to the interesting and cool part of execution. We've got one other thing, and I think we need to build a patched version of FireGel, which there may be another thing for FireGel where we can say, no, I don't care what directory you're in. Just always change directory immediately to whatever the private home directory is. I looked through that, and if we're going to be building our own FireGel, we could do that too. It looks pretty straightforward. Anyway, what am I going for? S3. Scalable storage in the cloud, apparently. S3, so many buckets. Where are we? Compiler Explorer. Ready to get rid of half of these things that I've still got lying around. It's just so cheap, it's hardly worth doing. And we've got dist. And we've got Travis. And we've got master. So we're going to grab this chap and copy link address. And we're going to do curl -s pipe tar jxf that. It's really 37 minutes into this. Golly. Operation not permitted. Yeah, whatever. We should have a... Yeah, there we go. So we've got a Haskell directory. And we have a GDC directory, a Rust directory, and we've got a... What's the other one called? LDC? No? It's just called D. Okay, so we're going to do sudo copy -r D Haskell, and actually let's do rsync -a D Haskell Rust 2 /opt compiler explorer, and then what's the thing we just called them? Yeah, they're demanglers. Okay, did that work? Drum roll, everybody. That Haskell one might be very slow, mightn't it? Let's just make sure that I actually have got the right answer. That looks good. That does look good. So I'm going to log back into the instance itself, wherever it is hiding, somewhere in here. CD instances login. And let's just make sure I can run each of those. Compiler Explorer demanglers, Haskell demangle. Moo. Lovely. Rust filt. Bin rust filt. Moo. Obviously moo is the correct thing to type here. There's no other possible outcome. That's awesome. Okay, so we've just copied them there manually, and I have 3 paths that are known good now. This one, and that one. That one. So the next thing to do is to update the configuration for Compiler Explorer, Amazon. Let's just search for this. So we're going to search for d/demangle. So that's inside d.amazon.properties. Excellent. Where else is it mentioned? d.local.properties. Okay, well, this is where my cavalier attitude to doing it properly is going to bite me, because ideally what I would want to do now is make sure I have the same files on my local machine that are going to be available on the remote machine, so I can actually do a test. And the only way I can see to do that, unfortunately, is to manually rsync them myself. So I'm going to do this, which hopefully is the same address. So DManglers to opt compiler explorer DManglers. Now, if I'd done it properly, of course, I could just run the same script locally that I run on the remote thing, but I'm being very lazy here. And I hope that's the right IP address. I bet you it isn't. I bet you that's just me relying on my history. So where are we? Let's go back over to here, go to EC2. And what this is the IP address of the admin instance. Oh, it's so nice to only see 4 running instances. We don't need that many. So the admin node lives on that IP address. Okay, is that the one we're copying from? It is not. Okay, that's going to take a very long time then, isn't it? Pasty. Lovely. All right, so we're going to recopy them down to my local machine, and then I'm going to update my local properties first. So d.local.properties. This is going to be opt compiler explorer demanglers demangle. Sound good? And then I'm going to run make dev language debug. Something very loud is happening behind me right now. Does anyone remember if I left execute on or not? I don't know. Let's have a look at it. Execute.profile. No. Execute.local.properties. Okay, so currently we're not using FireJail, so let's just check that that works first. Back to localhost. No, localhost. Any one of these would be localhost. There it is. Let's get rid of those two because they're confusing me. Let's go over to here. So we're ready. No output. Error. No no ent. Opt compiler explorer demanglers demangle. Okay, so maybe my rsync did not work the way that I wanted it to. Let's go and find out. No such file or directory. It's not wrong. What happened? Rsync. Opt compiler explorer demanglers. Did you not work? Compiler explorer demanglers. Aha! Compiler explore. Ha ha ha! This is why we test. Although I'm editing a file that is not the right one for production, so we'll have to make sure I copy this addition to the d.amazon.properties. Okay, back to no, not you. You can go away. In fact, make dev somewhere in here. Yes. Yeah, thank you, Luca. Somebody's paying attention. I'm not. Okay. There it goes. When it stops, nobody knows it's listening, but we know that it's going to be slow because it hasn't finished doing the packaging. There goes one of the noisy trucks. Come on. Come on, Webpack. There it goes. And we don't have demangling, which is sad. Why do we not have... So it says it executed opt compiler explorers demanglers demangle, and it got output of that. Isn't that fascinating? It seemingly worked, like it ran the right executable, but the executable didn't do anything useful. Ugh. Why so? You got back from cleaning the bath. I'm glad that hopefully I'm more interesting than cleaning the bath, however important that is. And hi, Luna. Sorry, I should say hi as well. We're now staring at why this did not work. This thing here, maybe it doesn't work, full stop. Let's go and have a look at what would happen if I were to put that directly in the existing version. It could be like the version that we're building is broken. So I'm going to log into one of the instances and compiler explorer.deploy, and now we should have our DMangle here. And I'm going to paste that directly in, and see, look, it's not working there. Why is that the case? Now let's compare and contrast. Whoops, let's press the right button. Let's compare and contrast that with the one that I built locally a few minutes ago before I went on air, which is inside DMangle here. I'm going to paste that in. Isn't that interesting? It looks like this has been broken for a while, because obviously we've been building demanglers for a while, but apparently not right. So I did that. That's how I built it earlier. I told it that LDC was this particular version, and the version that's installed on now in /ops compiler explorer is clearly not the right version. Perhaps the exhaustive mood test was badly contrived. That is impossible to countenance that that's the case. I mean, yeah, this is an absolute classic of test both cases, right? Both a succeeding and a failing case, so that you know that you're not just fooling yourself. Thank you, Luke, for picking me up on that. Hi, Alexander, as well. So this seems to be a separate category of problem, though. So again, in sort of like the pushing of the stack of what's going on, I am going to take this line here and paste it into the current DMangler appears broken, building locally with and testing with yields the correct answer of wherever the thing is of that, but the one currently being built on by Travis is broken. Comment. So in the pushing more and more things, sweeping more and more things under the rug, please do not pay any attention to the big mound at the left-hand side, which is this particular bug. I'm going to press on, and we're going to just check wherever it is, Rust. So I'm gonna sort of go, that works as well as it does currently on the site, and it's, you know, an improvement of some description. So our demangler I'm going to change to be that one, which is the demangler. This is me now editing the Amazon.properties instead of my local one. Let's just see where we are with Rust, shall we? If I were to, for example, kill that and say, let's try language Rust. What do I even get? Bearing in mind, I currently don't have a version of the Rust demangler even built locally. My local install doesn't have that. And the way that I can tell that is to look inside Rust and look inside bin and discover that I do, in fact, actually have the Rust field thing. So ignore everything I've been saying. That's terrible. I thought I didn't have that built. LDC uses its own demangler, which is part of the installation of LDC itself. So if we look for DMangle, oh golly, come on. Oh, LDC. I think the LDC compiler, let's search for it in here, DMangle. Demangling, oh, demangling is not needed, that's different. Where did I see the output for that? I thought there was something going on. I'm sure I've seen it using, so group.ldc object dumper. where in the heck is... So let's search for DMangler. So group DMD DMangler is that. Yeah, I'm... Maybe it does. LDC is an LLVM decompiler. But I've definitely seen it talking about it. I'm sure I've seen something come up in this huge amount of output here. I'm going to just scroll back up. Compilers. Somewhere in here, I thought I did. Maybe I'm making it up. Maybe I'm going mad. I mean, it's impossible to see in this giant... I mean, oh, this is the Rust output as well. Yeah. All right. Let's shelve Rust and go back to D, because there was clearly something that we need to understand about D. And I shouldn't be too cavalier about moving on. Okay, somewhere in here is now the D output. No, that's... Lang D mirror algorithm, mirror glass, something. Okay, let me find. There's a whole button for this in my terminal, and we're going to search for DMangle. Okay, DMD DMangle. DMangler, ops DMangler's DMangle. DMangle. Okay, these are all the DMD ones. DMangler. Yeah, see, somehow that value is getting populated. Opt compiler explorer LDC 180 blah 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 bin DMangle, which is better, right? It's part of the installation of LDC. Just for my own curiosity and to sate oh yeah, the question here is, why does it still say D language support disabled if you run make with language D? Yeah, that's the make file is outputting D language is disabled. It means that the make file couldn't find any of the D compilers itself to build the DMangler. So it's more like the make file says, hey, I don't think you've got a D compiler available, but I've already pre-built it and put it in the right place. So it's a bit misleading. The second part is the output from the Node program, or rather the input to the Node program saying, hey, select the configuration file called D. So confusing and, yeah, just confusing and not really any justifiable reason for it. I'm pasting this in. So that comes from d.defaults.properties. There we go. Okay, somehow that became the default. So it's going to use the LDC demangler for LDC. Sort of makes sense. That one should still work. I think we're good with D language for now, give or take the problem that we were seeing. So I guess, though, while we're here, we should just check the LDC output, because it would be easy to do as it's currently running. So over to here, we've got that. We're going to go LDC, and we're going to pick, I don't know, 1.15.0. And we see values that are clearly demangled. If I don't demangle, we can, there, right. Okay, LDC is working, but I have to remind myself, of course, that we're not running under FireJail at the moment. So let's go and turn FireJail back on. Oh, dear me. See, this is why I have paper, to try and remind myself where the heck I am in my stack of self-generated distractions. Okay, so we've just turned on FireJail, and I'm still alt-tabbing to the wrong windows. Unfortunately, in order to, so that any kind of pop-up that I might receive from like Twitter or like, you know, my wife texting me, for example, that appears, I've had to make my primary monitor the one that you can't see, which means that's where the alt-tab windows go, which means that every time I alt-tab, I have to look over there to see where which window I'm moving towards. Okay, so we'll refresh this chap and example.square. I don't know why decompilers are male. Today they are. And that looks good. So FireJail D. I'm going to put a cap in D and say D done for now. For now. Obviously modulo this bug. So I'm going to try language Rust. And see what we end up with that. And then we've got Haskell to check as well. Now Haskell... Haskell what? DMD doesn't do anything. Yes, right. Exactly, Luca. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, if you're looking on the site, that's the bug that actually triggered all of this. Someone filed that this morning, saying that the error doing post-processing 1. that is the first step where it's not even demangling. It is trying to do some kind of disassembly thing specifically for the DMD versions of the compilers, and that's the one that needed to have that relative path changed. So that bit worked. Okay, so here's Rust, and we can see that Rust is not demangling because I can see a very mangled looking name here. And it's telling me rust bin rustfilt obviously won't work because there is no rust bin rustfilt when you're running inside a fire jail. So we're going to go and fix that right now by telling it in rust.local.properties, wherever rustfilt is, rustfilt. Oh, maybe it's a rust.default.properties. There it is. Demangler equals that. So we're going to make this now opt compiler explorer demanglers rust bin rustfilt, and then I'm going to put the same line right away inside the rust.amazon.properties. Otherwise, I will forget. Save that, and we should see that the compiler is restarting. Drum roll. And the UI issue here unfortunately shows up that I haven't got the reload button at the bottom there, but if I just wiggle this a tiny bit, there it is. Oh. Clicky, compiling, still compiling. Example colon square. Victory. Victory is mine. Ours, I should say. I've had enough help from you fine people. So that's the demangler for that. Haskell is going to be more painful, but no less valuable. Haskell.default.properties, presumably demangler is there. Yes, so I'm going to steal you. Haskell.amazon.properties. That, I'm going to say opt compiler explorer demanglers. Haskell demangle, yes, and then I need to put this. I've never run the Haskell thing locally. So file, save it. Oh, I can't forget how to do that in this IDE. Paste Haskell.local.properties, and in fact the only one I need to override in my local file is that demangler. Everything else is groovy. Actually it is not. I'm going to keep the whole thing. Right. Let's run with Haskell. Do I have any Haskell compilers? No, I do not. So Haskell compilers are another one that I haven't actually ported over to the new system of installation. So I'm just going to run this directly. Haskell compilers. Off you go. I should probably port this over as well. That's another thing that I need to finish. This week would be so good. Please stick to English if possible. Sorry, which particular... Which... Oh, is there something going on inside the chat that I can't see? I've only got it on top chat here. I will put it to live chat. I haven't really thought about that. I realised... Yeah, Luca, was there an issue there on the chat? Or are you referring to my terrible use of English? It wouldn't be too surprising either way. Oh, golly, we're actually going to have to build and install something. So I'm on the what's the word? I'm the medium setting again for latency. I still seem to be further behind. Just judging from the reflected version, I can see myself in the monitor off here. Someone posted something in Russian. Oh, I see. Thank you, Luca. And I'm sorry to lean on you as a moderator there. I didn't actually notice it pop up, but it's already disappeared off of my feed. So you've done a good job, and I appreciate it. Okay, so Haskell takes a while to install. 8 seconds latency. Thank you. I don't have a clock on here. If I had a clock on here, you could tell much more easily. I wonder if that's enough of the installation done that I can actually run something, because I just need literally a smoke test. So let's do make dev language Haskell debug and see if we get any of the Haskell compilers working even a tiny bit, because I really don't want to have to sync all of them locally just to test this. I come from a land down under. Come on. My poor machine creaking under the weight of all this. I have still got hyperthreading turned on, despite the dire warnings by everybody that hyperthreading is a failed experiment in terms of computer security. Okay, we have one compiler for the Haskells. Let's see what we get. And I'm seeing what maybe... Let's have a look. There's the demangle executed, and we got some output. So, in as much as that appears to be working, that is, we have been able to spawn the process that we would otherwise be running normally from FireGel and get some output from it. That works. So yeah, sorry, the hyperthreading thing there. Yeah, hyperthreading makes a lot of them a lot easier because you can guarantee to be running. Well, if you can guarantee to be running on a sibling hyperthread, then there are so many more avenues of attack to attack a privileged process. And that's it really. And a lot of the things come down to just don't do that. Now, I haven't fully finished reading a lot of the stuff, but if you can force the kernel into reading like particular memory locations that are privileged, and then you can bang on the door of the load to store bypass subsystem, then you can sometimes read things that you shouldn't be able to read. Huge waving of hands, and probably more other people would have better understanding than me, but I will at some stage. There's a couple of friends have asked me if I could do like a version of like what the heck all the new exploits are, and I bring myself up to speed and do a video or something. But I have to do the SWAT ones first. Right, yeah. I mean, that's obviously, the kernels can minimize it, but obviously they can't prevent it totally. I mean, unless you want to like totally isolate physical CPUs as this is a privileged process, and no unprivileged processes are ever allowed to execute on the same physical infrastructure. Yeah, no. We don't have to go. 8086 is terrible. We want to use one of these beautiful things here, which sits by my desk to remind me of how far we've come. So this is a Z80, lovely 8-bit processor, around the same time as the 8086 in fairness. And then I've got a lovely 6502, which is my favourite here. And I just seen on the back, I've never noticed this before, there's a little sticker telling me the warranty is void if removed. I'm thinking, given that this was created the last week of 1988, that I don't think the warranty is actually in force anymore. But it is a beautiful thing. What's the other one? So that one, 1986. So my Z80. This is actually the Z80 that was in my computer as a child. This is like my second childhood computer. Whereas the 6502, although it's my favourite one, is one I actually had to buy new. But yeah, right. I think we're good. Let's take stock of where we are. So we have a horrible hacky. Matt just copied a bunch of stuff onto /opt in the wrong place, into a decent place, but using the wrong methodology. We now have a bunch of changes to use the demanglers out of that directory. Undocumented opcodes. That's fine. They're not. It's not insecure. It's just interesting and fun. I have a whole talk about the undocumented. Well, it's not really a talk. There's a whole like the one of the penultimate finales of a talk I have is on the undefined opcodes in the 6502 and my fight against them as a kid, especially as that particular 6502 has different undefined opcodes from the one that was in my computer, and I had to hack games so that they would work on my computer because they all assumed that it was using the CMOS version instead of the NMOS version. Sorry, depletion mode. Sorry, the NMOS version instead of the CMOS version, which was fun. It is fun. It was fun. Okay, so what are the changes? We are changing Amazon to not use the demangle that comes along with the build. Yay. Oh, side channel attacks. Yes. Fabulous. We are using Haskell from Opt Compiler Explorer's demangler as well. Rust should be the same change. Lovely. What are we changing base compiler? So these are some of the changes that I was making prior to going live. And this is just a logging change. I should probably just check that in separately. demangler.js. Oh, this is why I diff things. So this is me trying to work out how the execution was happening. Shh. Printf debugging. Let's just undo that. DMD is the relative path thing. This is this will fix the current live site's error -1 during post-processing. I hope. So that's that change. And that's just another logging change. So we have two logging changes. That's compile and base compiler.js. So I'm going to add those in first, just for sort of check-in hygiene. So we want base compiler and compile, and this is just commit -m minor logging tweaks -n. I don't want to run the test for that. And then we're going to do git add lib compilers dmd.js, and I'm going to do git commit -m. Now this is fix for the issue we had up here, DMD. So fix for post-processing in DMD under firejail closes hash 1386. Oh, that's a pleasing bug number, isn't it? After all our earlier conversations there. Okay, I will that one run the tests. I'm out of tea. This is an unfortunate thing. And we are, what, 1 hour in? Oh, golly. 1 hour, 6 minutes in. I think my tests are taking an awful lot longer this time than normal. I don't like tests that take a very long time. Even in C++, I try and keep them down to a minimum. Oh, in other news as well, my plan for tomorrow is to do more C++ live coding, as that seems to be more well received by more people, and I want to try and reach out while I still have the time to do it. But I do want to get execution live this week on the Compiler Explorer site. So you heard it here first. Okay, we can add dot, and we do commit -m, and we're going to say use demanglers stored on opt compiler explorer. Oh, now my computer is really slowing down. Compiler-explorer instead of local ones to work around firejail issues on Amazon. So we don't actually have a bug file for this particular issue. I don't need to run the test again because nothing's changed. Excellent. So we're going to push those, and I will also take a to-do on this one here. So this is our move installation, and we should also remember to remove the build from Travis, the binaries stroke build from Travis builds in Godbolt compiler explorer project comment. Okay. So the story so far, we should have fixed DMD, at least fixed to its previously working version of demangling, and also actually what's the word? Not erroring out. So why don't we get that at least deployed? I will have to wait for Travis for that one. Travis. So we get Travis up here. I don't think I've got any other windows open. Oh, I do. I've got so many windows open. I combine these. That can go over here. And that can go over here as well. Then I've only got one Chrome window on this monitor at least. Excellent. So the next most important thing to fix is the ICC 1301 gives gateway timeout. So let's give some background on that while we wait for the Travis build. The Intel compilers are fun because they are commercial compilers that have their own licensing system, And part of the fire jailing work is to try and minimize the number of things that can read the license files, as they otherwise seem to they're ripe for exfiltration. And in fact, I have several proof of concepts that can exfiltrate the license files that I can't think of a way around, to be honest. But Intel were aware of this when I spoke to them about putting the compiler on the site. I think, it's I won't say best effort, but it's fair effort to try and go out of my way to prevent it from being totally trivial. So that is the situation. Now, unfortunately, some of the compilers. That's brilliant. Okay, so Austin, who I suspected but wasn't 100% certain. Let me just have a look over here. So I thought that Juvenile was Austin and vice versa. So apologies for combining those things. I do try my best not to sort of like out people as being the same handle in different places, but I think you've made it pretty straightforward here. But thank you so much. So we've now got a -- private CWD for FireJail, which means that we don't, in fact, have to excuse me, we don't actually have to use the blacklist trick to blacklist the / compiler explorer image directory after all. So it's kind of obviated a lot of this work. Well, it certainly gives us options and choices, and I would much rather be explicit about it. So great. Thank you very much, Austin. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. But to sort of give a bit more background and backpedal and then explain why the patched version of the application that Austin's working on is going to be a solution to the problem that we've got here is we were getting gateway timeout issues. Now, FireJail waits for an entire process tree to go away because it's created a jailing environment for a compiler, for an executable, I should say, and then it's running that executable, and then it's responsible for maintaining that environment, that sort of walled garden for that process and all the child processes that it generates. Which means that if the main process goes away, but all the children are still around, it's going to wait. So this is what was happening here in this timeout. We were getting timeouts for one of the Intel compilers. And the reason we're getting timeouts is because it's spawning a background daemon thread, which is going to sort of monitor. It's called Intel Remote MonD, and I tried my hardest to find any kind of way to prevent that from happening, for being created, and I was unable to. Now, there are other problems here as well, because even if we kind of kill the Intel Remote MonD like executable, get it out the path and all that kind of stuff, there's a background process which tries to run that, and it's sort of a potluck which process exits last. And FireJail, as it currently stands, gives the process exit of the last process in the group as the return value of the FireJail executable. So that means that if I run the compiler and the compiler succeeds, but the sort of background process of trying to fork the Intel Remote MonD fails, and that happens to happen after the compiler is finished, then we get the error result of the background process, which we just don't care about. So I went backwards and forwards over and over again. There was a load of Twitter nonsense about this as well. It took a long time to discover that this is what was going on, and there's some cool little tricks here. I'd never actually heard of ltrace before now, but it's super cool. So if you've used strace, which is what I first started doing here to determine what the heck was going on, I saw processes being forked, and then I would see like the last process would exit with exit code 5, which was then what the compiler apparently exited with, which is not the case. I then ran ltrace after somebody pointed out that this is a cool thing. Sorry, strace traces system calls. ltrace traces library calls. So here I said, hey, find all library calls to get env, and I piped it through a bunch of clever things to cut out the things I wanted. And this was me seeing what what environment variables this particular process was looking at. And so we can see actually all of the things the Intel compiler looks at, all the variable, the license, the environment variables while it's looking for licenses and things. And I thought any of these might be able to stop it from doing the daft Intel Remote Mondi thing. But I tried them all. Nothing seemed to help. So thankfully, AP Morton here, I believe Juvenile, has come up with this wonderful hack. Not even a hack, this wonderful extra new features for FireJail to allow it to terminate orphans, like it says here, and have a deterministic exit code, which is the exit code, I think, of the most of the first forked thingamajig. So they have pinged me in Slack, wherever that is, and added a new commit. So CD to private home without impacting the profile. That's excellent. So there's another one over here. So I have now this particular version of private CWD. So we can have a look at, I hope Austin doesn't mind me exposing this code to the wider populace and discussing it. This is just brilliant. So that's just it. Okay, private must be specified before private CWD. Exactly, that looks brilliant. That's exactly what we need for that. And then for the other, so we'll put that in. And then the other, wherever it has gone, here, this terminate orphans and deterministic exit code comes from this version. Now, I need to go back over to the live chat so I can see anybody replying to me. So, terminate orphans, deterministic exit code. And so if it was the application PID, that's when it remembers the app status I see. And then if we asked it to kill the remaining things, then it will do. Otherwise, we remember it. And if it exited, I mean, that looks good to me. That looks great. So how do we go about building this particular version? So we've got, is it on a branch? They are both on the feature C patch branch. You are a mind reader. Thank you. So this is the version that I want to now build and run to see see what happens. And we'll come back to it. So I'm going to build that locally, and I'm going to run it locally, and I'm going to test it as much as I can locally first. Before we do that, I'm just going to update the staging environment with the change that we have been working on thus far. So this is 4100. So I'm going to go CE dash, oh, you can see I was chatting using the world's worst chat program, which is the shared shell session. So M staging, which is the default, so I don't even need to do it. And we're going to say builds, set current latest. And we want to do staging, and it's 4100, that's right, and it's master, yes. And do CD instances restart. And this is staging. All right, so I'm going to go back in a minute and check out, once this is finished, I'm going to check out the staging environment and make sure that the Rust, the Haskell, and the DMD fixes work. And then I won't push that to production. It's just like, it proves to me that we're on the right track. We're going to now try and work on this Intel thingamajig and go from there. Intel thingamajig. I'm sorry. I'm starting to lose brain power here. So which FireJail? What have I got locally? User bin FireJail. So I think I currently have FireJail installed from my repository, my repository, the default Ubuntu repository. So I'm going to just remove FireJail from there. Goodbye. Now, if you recall, one of the things we did when we were upgrading to FireJail is we first apt-get installed the version of FireJail that was just in the repository on the administration machine and the other the compiler explorer nodes. And the problem with that is that that's an older version of FireJail. So along the way, we updated the setup scripts to pull down a particular version of FireJail and build it there. So I'm just going to go and crib from that how to build a version of FireJail, which is going to be in setup.sh here in the other repo. It's these very simple steps here. So I'm going to do exactly that. Push d/temp, git clone, and of course what we're going to do now is not clone that URL, but we're going to clone Austin's one. Lovely. And of course, I can do this in a single command. I don't know why I did it any other way, but never mind. It's firejail, git checkout, and then we're going to do features/ce patch. Lovely. Make minus configure enable app armor. Brilliant. Thank you. All right. So sudo apt install. So Austin was just saying that this is based off of the same version that I was currently building, this 0958.2, which is not actually the most recent version. So we're going to need that one by the looks of it. Install libarmor dev. Excuse me. The keen-eyed amongst you might have seen my wife disappear behind me a minute ago. She obviously gone out shopping to... we've pretty much eaten everything in the house, and she's very kindly gone off to do that, so I don't starve tonight. Okay, let's see if this now builds. And make -j nproc. Off we go. This is wonderful. So one of the reasons I picked firejail, instead of trying to roll my own, which is what Melpon has done for one box, is that I really wanted it to be something. Oh, golly, there we go. That was quick, wasn't it? Something that was well understood and well tested by other people, and we're reaping the benefit of that. But here we're starting to go off the reservation by building our own patched version of firejail. Obviously, if these are useful to me, they're probably useful to other people. So I'm hoping that if Austin is up for it, he can try and upstream some of these changes. In which case, we can make the world a better place for everybody. And what did I just say? Cat tilde dev compile explorer image setup.sh. And what do we do at the end of this? Make install. Okay, sudo make install. And Austin's just said he does plan to upstream. I realize, of course, actually, I say this because I assume that when this video goes out, you can't see the chat, but the chat is, of course, part of the video, so I forget that. So I don't have to tell you what you already see. Okay, lovely. Firejail version. Lovely. 0958.2, which firejail ls-l, which firejail. Use a local bin. Excellent. Okay, and that was built May 20th just now. So we know that we're running the right version of firejail. Use a local bin firejail. Splendid. So next up then is to go... Well, actually, in the spirit of trying to do two things at once, we had just restarted the staging instance. Let's go and give that a quick test, and then we know that we're on the right track with that. I apologize for flip-flopping backwards and forwards, but I'm trying to do things in parallel so that we don't actually suffer too much from time pressure. Okay, I've got a whole bunch of Twitter notifications I've been ignoring. Hopefully nothing too exciting. Nothing exciting at all, just lots of nice people retweeting my tweets, which is wonderful of them. Okay, so staging, here's DMD. DMD is working. I mean, that's a good start. Let's just refresh to make sure it is actually building. That looks great. We're still not seeing the demangling here because we know that that's actually broken. That's a separate issue. Let's go to Rust and see, does Rust demangle? Example : square. Again, just reload it to make sure it's definitely hitting that. Yep. And the other one was Haskell, wasn't it? And oh, there's some mangly looking names in there, actually. That's unfortunate. What happens if we turn off demangling? All right. Demangling is doing something. Right, I can see that line 11 is changing as I move backwards and forwards on this here. It's not necessarily... Put my teeth in. It's not necessarily doing what I would want it to do, but it seems to be no better nor worse than what it was before. So I'm declaring victory on this with a sort of big ASCII footnote of like, but really, somebody who knows more about this should take a look at it. So, oh, I've lost YouTube on the other window again. I really should learn to do this better. Okay. Okay, it's complaining that it's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, so hopefully there was just a momentary glitch and you can see everything okay still. I will assume that that is the case still. Alright, So we're looking good on the staging. Let's get this fire jail thing knocked out the park, and we'll be done. So obviously I need to find where my execution.local.properties is that. I think actually in my execution.defaults.properties, what have I got in here? Firejail equals firejail. Okay, cool. It'll find it on my path. I was just wondering whether I had a hard-coded path that would point at the other, the wrong place. Thank you, Luca. So back to. So if this works, we'll need to do two things. One is to update the base image to have a new version of Firejail. And then armed with that new version of Firejail, we can then upgrade the compiler version. Sorry, we can start using it and pass some of the command line flags that are the new ones that Austin's put in. So let us remind ourselves what those are. So there it was. So we're going to have no profile deterministic execute code, and we also want terminate orphans, I think. And also custom CWD or whatever you said, private CWD. Lovely. This is one of the best things ever. So to exec.js. Actually, before I make any changes, let's prove that I can see at least some of the problems that I'm seeing in production on my local machine again. So I'm going to be using the new Firejail. I'm going to be running Intel compilers, but I'm not going to be passing those new command line options yet, because it would be much nicer to see it fail and then prove that the command line options make it pass again. Agreed? Glad you agree. So let's go to this window. This is the image directory. Oh gosh, all the Haskell compilers have now installed, so have I got any hard disk space left? Surprisingly, I have 650 gig of space left. I'm very surprised. I thought I would be running out by now. So we're in Compiler Explorer. We're going to do dev. We're going to say language, C++, --debug. And I think, if I remember rightly, if I look at my C++.local.properties, I already have this hacked, yes, to only load up the Intel compiler. So this is just saying compilers equals amp ICC, which just says just pick up the Intel compilers. Otherwise, it takes approximately 100 years to start up, as it runs every other compiler known to man. It already takes long enough. So to the local host, let's close the staging one. Let's close Travis for now. Let's get rid of that. There's Austin's thingamajig. There's ICC issues. We get rid of it. All right, we're in a relatively tidy spot now. Let's get rid of instances there. Lovely. Local boy. I really should go to the bathroom as well. I am quite uncomfortable, but I just want to get it working. I want to get it working. I want that moment of golden ra. So there's 1301 beautifully working for me, and I'm going to recycle it a few times. Compilation failed. Ah, interesting, Mr. Bond. Let's see if we get exit code 5 or whatever it says here. Compiler returned 5. Okay, so there it is, failing in one of the many myriad ways it likes to fail. And it works sometimes. So there is our non-deterministic error code, exit code. And this one is not hanging. And I don't know why this one doesn't hang, but the one on the FAR website does. And I can only assume it's due to something about the local setup is not quite the same. I think probably my opt Intel directory locally is not actually the same as the remote one. So why don't I fix that? Yeah, we just did an rsync, didn't we? DMangler's there. So opt compiler apparently that didn't work. Okay, Intel. So this is a directory which I deliberately go out of my way to not put as open source, but I'm going to have it synchronized locally. Oops, sorry, I've woken the cat up. So I will hide that from you, because I think some of the path names and things might even be sensitive. Golly, it's got a lot of stuff coming down there. I didn't want all of those. I just know that somewhere buried in amongst all of those is the remote mond, and I suspect that is part of what's happening here, is that it's going to hang forever because it actually is able to find and execute the Intel remote mond on the remote site. So that's nice. We'll leave you going. Meanwhile, we can definitely get some progress made here. So to our exec.js, And in here we have wine. We can ignore wine for now. Although it's always nice to have wine, right? We know that we want, after the base options, we're going to push dash dash. Oh, let's stick to a somewhat same dash dash private CWD. That's the new cool thing that we've just had added, which is great. Private CWD. And I think the error message implies that this needs to happen after the private equals or the dash dash private. So that's why it can't go in the base options up here. So something else we want to do is we want to have, and we can put these ones up earlier, dash dash, and I will have to refer to Austin's pull request thing, pull request. So we want terminate orphans. And well, let's try deterministic exit code first. So this should fix the problem that I'm experiencing currently on my machine. So that runs. I'm going to go over to the dev. Oh, that's the wrong one. Somewhere in here I have a, there it is, an instance running. Let's run this. And our survey says, well, it worked once. That's awesome. Naming is hard indeed. There's no need to apologize at all. I think the names look good to me, but this is brilliant. I mean, it's not DMangling, which is interesting, but I think unrelated. Why are you not DMangling? I don't know. Oh, you know, you start picking up rocks and you find all sorts of things underneath it, right? But look, that's just glorious. Glorious working. I declare that to be perfect. Okay, so we're still rsyncing over here. And I suspect as soon as the rsync gets to the directory that has the Intel Remote Mon-D in it, then it will then start hanging, which is what we're seeing on the production site. And that will be good as well. And then I'll add in the command line flag that Austin's added to sort of like say, no, when you die, so does everybody else. And we'll go from there. But right now I can't put off the call of nature any longer, and also the call of T. So I'm going to say AFK T 2 minutes. BRB. So thank you so far. No, habit. I will be back. Oh, I'm glad that you're enjoying fish. Obviously, you can do great things with Bash. Z Shell is great too, but fish is the one that I've chosen and has a lot of cool things that I like. But I am going to go to the loo and I'm going to get a new cup of tea, and then we're going to hopefully kick off with the rsync having finished, reproducing the hanging case locally. Then we will add the command line flag that will make everything awesome. Then I need to update the comment that says something about blacklisting, so I don't need to do that blacklisting trick anymore with the dash dash custom CWD, which was nice. Then what have we got left? We've got to then update the image, push the new image, build the new image, deploy the new image, and then we can check in all of this stuff and push it to staging, and then all that being done, we can push to production, and then I think that will probably take us to the end of my allotted time. But we'll see if we can sneak in, turning on execution in the beta site. But back in 2 minutes. All right, thank you. Oh, and I need a cup. Helps to have a cup. Joy. I'm sure you're going to appreciate that I feel considerably more comfortable now. Alright, has that rsync, is that still going? That has finished. Hooray! So, can we reproduce the hanging case here? The hanging no, we can't. Well, that fills me with a certain amount of sadness. But I am prepared to Hail Mary this whole thing and add also dash dash whatever Austin's other argument was. Dash dash terminate orphans. Oh, it's such a sad name, but it makes sense. Okay, so we'll add that in and make sure that hasn't broken anything else. Who knows? Wunderbar. The kettle has just boiled, so I'm gonna have to go back and pour tea in before it gets too cool. As we all know, we need to have very hot water for that. Okay, what are you saying? There it goes. One Mississippi compilation failed. Oh, interesting. Interesting. So what do we say here? All right, I need to go to get my tea. Stage 2 of tea making is complete. The pouring in of the water. Is it working on the site? That is odd, Pantufel. I may have broken that with C++ Filt. I wonder... We should check on staging. Thank you. Okay, well, yet again, one other thing at a time. What are we going on here? We're getting exited. Fargel is exiting with result code 15. So we're going to steal everything that we said we were executing, and we're going to paste it in here, and we're going to deal with the morass of arguments that we don't need, and we're going to run it ourselves. And instead of quiet, we're going to do dash dash debug. We have deterministic exit code, terminate orphans. Poor little orphan didn't have a chance. Tiny Tim mode. Okay, so we're going to have temp, moog, why not, dash dash private quad, opt, all the things with the stuff. Oh, output. There's almost certainly a more convenient way of doing this, but humor me. And then kill. Yes. Invalid private directory. Oh, because I haven't made it. Oh, I thought I had a tump moog, but apparently not. So let's touch tump. Touch bonk. Example dot cpp. Okay, sandbox monitor. So that is interesting. App exited, terminating any orphans. That seems to not have worked the way that I was expecting it to. So let's get rid of terminate orphans for a second and run this a few times. Wait, rep val. Actually, what I should do is echo $status. Yeah, Tump Moose is probably there, but I'm changing it around. Moog is the other thing I like to use. It's my childhood nickname. Okay, so we're getting to see this $status at the end. That's the actual thing we're getting returned with. So deterministic exit code, and then we're going to do dash dash terminate orphans. So that's working. All right, let's give this another go in this window and see if it's every time. Seems to be. I wonder what's going on there. Worked this time. That's extremely suspicious. Maybe this is unrelated to the terminate orphans. This is just more due to there's still something in here that is a little bit dodge. Yeah. So we're still getting an occasional result code 15. I'd like to try and reproduce that over here a few times. Let's just... There it is. Okay, child receives signal 15. Signal 15. What is signal 15? Let's remind ourselves. Kill signal list 15. Sig term. So it looks like... No, the rsync has completed. The rsync has completed. So I'm still not seeing any issues with that. But it looks like when it says app exited terminating any orphans, and it then says parent receives signal 15, which is sig term, shutting down the child process. And then that seems to be the exit code that the application is getting. Which is odd because, you know, I agree with the code that you wrote, Austin. That seems to do what I would expect it to do. And yet, it's okay sometimes. There we are. So it's like 1 in 5. Yeah, so that... I mean, you can see the output here. And that we're seeing... yeah, that's odd. Am I in supervisor D? I don't think. No, I don't think there's any supervisor D, but it looks like when we... Oh, but that kill, actually, interestingly, Austin, that kill was a -1. Does that kill everything, including itself? So then is there a point where it could actually receive its own signal before it actually has shut itself down and returned, or something like that? Or am I talking rubbish there? I almost certainly am talking rubbish. Let's have a quick look. So if we're exiting, we kill -1 with sig term. So that, of course, kills even the current process, as I understand it, with sig term, as opposed to necessarily just children. I see. So Austin's point is that that happens from the child. So again, it's hard without context here. But we definitely see parent receive signal 15, and we also see child received signal 15, shutting down the sandbox. But whether those are related or not, I don't know. Now, obviously, it would be lovely if I could make this super, super reproducible, and then perhaps, you know, Austin, you could take a look at this. But it seems to be related to this terminate orphans. So I'm going to run this a few times and just see if it's more stable. Now, we do need that terminate orphans. I'm pretty sure, because that, I think, is what's happening on the production box right now. If we go to the staging box and try to get this working, which is what we should do. I think that's the next thing we should do, is just try a temporary install of this in place on the staging environment and see if we can't get it to... yeah, is all processes assume that PID1 is in it? Yes. Now, obviously, PID1 here is whatever the application is, I think. So if we run firejail... and instead of that, we run execute.profile, blah, blah, PS. Yeah, PS is firejail in this instance. So yeah, you're right. It should be everything except for its own process, right? I totally agree with that. If SIG is except for process 1 in it, but C below. I don't know if that is still true inside of process namespaces. Who knows? It's more complicated, obviously, than that. Yeah, so Panty4, that only happens because this code gets triggered when ICC itself terminates. That's the sort of the theory here, is that when the main process goes and dies with this flag on, as I read the code, and Austin, please correct me if I'm wrong, when the main process goes away, the sandbox is then terminated, including all children within it. Yeah, strace is extremely difficult to do here because strace requires privileges that aren't available inside this particular sandbox. It's worth a go though, so I'm going to try that. So let's get that back in. Deterministic exit code dash dash. What is the thing with the stuff? It was terminate orphans. Oh, my T. I will be back. Right. If you run, yeah, you can strace firejail, but then if you run firejail as root, a whole bunch of other things get disabled that would otherwise be enabled. It changes it again. So we can certainly give that a go though. And my T is terribly strong, so I'll have to live with that. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm just going to have no profile, which will allow me to run strace inside this. Private CWD, but of course with no profile we're now going to have all sorts of different other things going on. Let's see first of all if we can get this to happen. It's not happening now with the no profile, so let's put the profile back in. Oh, I've lost terminate. Yeah, strace must be relative. Yes, that is true. But it also needs privileges, which are being dropped on purpose as well. So even if you could run as root, terminate orphans. Is that the right one? Yeah. Okay. Just trying to get myself back to a known sane good, because this is now seemingly working okay. Okay, there's the 15. And it takes longer when this fails, which is interesting. Let's try sudo strace -o temp york f firejail --debug all the things. So yeah, this is what we get when we try and run at firejail. There's a number of weird problems that happen. Private directory is not owned by the current user. Well, we can fix that. Sudo chown temp moog root. And then try that. Okay. Interestingly, we've got a different error. Oh, because the chown needs to be -R to get everything in it. There we go. Let's try that. Okay, that works. Ah. We want a failing run though, don't we? Yeah, it seems very racy. The fact that it now seems to be working every time because we're running it sudo and with under strace does smell of race. I wonder if we need to kill all of the orphans itself. I wonder if there's another way of achieving this, because if I control C a long-running process in firejail, that obviously sends a term just to the main process, not to all of the sub-processes including it. And I wonder if that is what we need to do here. But I also am out of ideas. So isn't that annoying? strace is either making it work or making it less likely to happen. So I'm just going to run sudo that whole thing without strace. Because there are definitely some things that are different about running firejail as root. Some of the file system related things are not the same. Maybe it doesn't create some of the intermediate processes otherwise, because it doesn't have to do. So this is stable as. So, okay, now we need to do sudo chown -R Matthew Marhu. Crikey, can't even type my own name. Okay, so we're back to just running this. 1, 2. So it's stable as you like running as root. If you run as me, it does more work. So what if we were to run in here, private quoad strace minus f minus o /trace, all of that nonsense. So 255 is the error code now, because presumably it can't actually strace. So let's go and try and turn on just enough stuff inside the FireGel environment to exhibit the problem but allow us to use strace. Config execute.profile. So private temp, private, etc. Standard.inc. Okay, here I'm going to get rid of the caps.drop all. And I think that should give us a fighting chance of doing it. No. Okay, strace. No root. Oh, we'll get rid of no root as well. In fact, let's just turn all of those off for now. All right. So we're able to strace now in the environment, and I bet you it still bloody works every time. Okay, so it's working every time with all of those things turned off and with it run under strace. So now we're going to get rid of strace and see if the things that we've just turned off are actually part of the problem. Whoops. Did not want to do that. 0, 15. Okay, it's got to be a timing based thing, and strace has got to be interfering with it, because when we're running with strace, it just never happens. But when we don't run, when we run without strace, it's like 1 in 3. That is super annoying. I can only assume there's some ordering. You know, when you do a kill -1, there is some process that receives it, and it depends whether that process is before or after you in a process table or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. So that's unfortunate. And Austin, I'm going to leave you to ruminate on that, and please let me know if there are any other experiments I can run immediately to sort of help with that. And in the meantime, I'm going to try on the staging instance. Yeah, yeah. That's a solution is always running under strace. Yeah, that's like putting the printf in to fix the race condition, right? 2 of you come up with that. Yep. Not a solution I'm prepared to accept, I'm afraid. But I appreciate the thought. So I'm going to just see what happens running FireGel as it stands on the staging instance with the existing version of FireGel, just to see if we can kind of get some idea about what's going on here. So I'm going to grab that whole command line there, and I'm going to paste it in here. Now we're not running half of these things. Echo status. It's not that on bash, $$, whatever the heck it is in this. Excellent. There's none of those 2 things. Terminate, and we need to go into compiler explorer.deploy. Invalid. And we need to mookdir temp moog and touch temp moog example.cpp. All right. So now we're running the same thing with the old version of FireGel. Invalid private quote. What? Private equals. Oh, because we also don't have private CWD. See, this is the problem that we now get when we run remotely. And I don't know why I don't get this locally. It's very, very unusual. I'm really not sure what's going on here. I don't know what files or magical state is leaking in to make this run differently in 2 things. Agreed there. I just wonder, so for example, Austin said, the worst case is to implement by just rummaging around and killing all the processes individually. What happens when I hit Control-C normally? So this whole thing with child you know, this shutting down the sandbox. That's the bit we need to trigger, as I understand it. So if we can find the signal handler and what the signal handler does in order to initiate this shutting down the sandbox, that might help us here. Although, you saw how long it took to shut down. It would still be, you know, like, so that's the equivalent of me hitting Control-C there. So this first aspect here, where it says monitoring monitoring PID 6, maybe not. I don't know actually. You know, we don't see. There's some other. Who knows what's going on here? I can't believe we don't get more information about that. Yeah, PID 19 is the offending one. So alright, I had another idea. I still think it's worth pursuing this in general, right? This is definitely something which is going to be an improvement. I see. Okay, so it's interesting. Well, we get signal 2. Control-C gives us a different signal. I don't know if that makes anything better, worse, or otherwise. SIGTERM is obviously signal 15, as we discovered. I don't know if that makes any difference. We can try it out, obviously. So the other idea I had would be to leak through whatever remote mondi thing is going on. So let's do remote. We don't have an Intel remote mondi, but it's somewhere in opt Intel ISM bin Intel 64 Intel remote mon vomit. How do I turn it? Intel remote mondi, I think. This is the process it's trying to run, I believe. So now I've got one running. PSAUX grep Intel remote mondi. And so as process 22677, let's have a look at what this has. And then we'll look inside its FD -L. Notice we have this temp Intel remote mon FIFO nonsense going on. I wonder if I were to whitelist this particular pattern, if I could get away with that. So here's FireGel, unadulterated FireGel, nothing up my sleeves. We're running the Intel remote mon. Bleh, really don't want to. But if I were to say profile equals this, private equals that, whitelist equals temp Intel remote mon FIFO.1000. Apparently not. I was really hoping that it would attach to the existing running server and stop bloody playing silly games with me. PID 19. Go away, PID 19. So we can't have this. We definitely need your kill approach, which does, actually doesn't terminate it anything other than like ingraciously. And I think Luna's right. Control-C is sigint. I think if we do man kill, it's a terrible thing to have to type, isn't it? Kill -L. Sigint. Yes, 2 is sigint. 15 is sigterm. So there may be a subtle difference between those two. I don't know. Either way, the thing that we actually need is the brutal teardown of the environment, because we definitely don't want the compiler to wait on this. That would be dreadful every time. So this whitelist option here is still not working the way that I wanted it to. What if I did that? That's no good. It's still running an Intel remote mondi. Why? Why must you run this horrible process? I wonder if it's in a different environment or something like that. Jail. ls-l. What else have we got going on in that proc? So we know that it's only it's seemingly it stood in is Intel remote mon FIFO. It also has that socket 242.250. What do we got? So it's a datagram socket. I bet you this is some horrendous phone home nonsense. Which is horrible. I mean, I don't want to do that. I find it abhorrent. But if anyone can find a magical way to prevent Intel Mondi. Okay, so why don't we get this back up again? Let's get rid of that whitelist because that's obviously not working. So we now have a PID 19 in that fire jail. If I control Z that and then do fire jail -- list. What is... So that is this Intel Remote Mondi. What if, putting evil hat on, what if we try and prevent that from even existing? Right, it's obviously looking for it somewhere. Now, let's have a look at proc 22796 and see where it's coming from. Exe. Sudo, make me a sandwich. So it's definitely reading it from here. Opt Intel ISM bin Intel 64 Intel Remote Mondi. So we know that that's what it's executing. What if, let's just say, I were to move that directory so it didn't exist anymore? Just saying, all right? So we're going to go right now onto the admin node, and I so had it with this that I'm just going to do it. So I'm going to move ISM to ISM moved out of way to stop stupid Intel Remote Mondi. Permission denied. Sudo make me a sandwich. Okay, we're done now. Ha! Now we are just back down to the original problem of the non-deterministic exit, which I believe has been amply fixed. Oh, thank you. Someone's got a link here about... yes, I think you're probably right, Juvenile. Austin. I'm so sorry. I keep confusing myself. Okay, so... Intel software thing. Opt out. You can use the following command. SC0. All right. You know what I'm going to do? So thank you for that list, that opt out thing. Oh, and I've lost YouTube. Well, first of all, we know that it's no longer there. Right, so here we are. It's not ISM, it's called ISM - moved out of the way to stop Intel Remote Mondi bin Intel 64 that. But I want to see what it's doing. Temp badger minus F that. So we're going to say SC0. What are you doing? Why is it taking so long? To opt out from the improvement quality, run that. Well, I beg to differ. That appears to not be the case. In fact, it's not even listening to Control C right now. So I'm going to count to 10. We're running out of... I'm so sorry we didn't get to execution today, but this has been so good. We've still got another 20 minutes. Don't worry. I'm still going to be chatting for 20 minutes before my kids turn up and gate crash. But that seems unfortunate. Wow, that seems very unfortunate. I can only assume it's stuck in some horrific NFS-related problem. I really want to watch, because I want to see what it's doing by doing that SC0. Because whatever file that's creating that says I'm opted out needs to be available in the jail, otherwise it'll just perpetuate. Well, that's really unfortunate. Tell remote Mondi kill -9280267. Okay, right, we managed to do that. So, I wonder if I have to sudo this. Well, let's have a look at what temp badger has in it. Obviously, badger is the perfect example. Where were we stuck? It was stuck in send to home Intel ISM RM Intel remote mon date. So this is something that just dumps unceremoniously in the root directory, in the home directory. Look here, Intel, this thing. I don't want that. What's in the options? Intel remote mon options.db. What does file think that is? It is SQLite database. Oh, we're going to use SQLite in a second, aren't we? We shouldn't have to do this. This is just so gut-wrenchingly horrible. I am going to opt out by not having the executable available and using the deterministic error feature. So, Austin, if you want to look into that in some way, yeah, I start insulting compilers. Yeah, I have certain opinions. I think in the tweet stream, the tweet storm that I gave, where I first exposed this problem to the world, I started off by saying how much I love compiler author writers, and then it very quickly degenerated into but I hate closed source software, which is hugely ironic. No, that's not the right word. Hypocritical is the right word, because of course I've only ever really worked, apart from my hobbies, I've only ever been paid to work on closed source things. So, yuck. But it's just, given that I have Intel compiler, the LLVM based, all the LLVM compilers, the Haskell compilers, everything else, right? With the exception of even Wine, right? I don't have the Microsoft source code, and I don't have Intel source code, and it's a shame. And in conversations with Intel, I don't think that I shouldn't say, but it's just an unfortunate situation to be in, that I'm now working around some rather dreadful things, in theory, to prevent, this. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought now, but I'm just so sort of angry. I've moved it out of the way for now. My worry is it will come back and we'll forget that this has happened, and so, there's a hack coming. I'm all for hacks. Let me know when it's in. Okay, is it in the latest, Austin? Because I'm going to go into temp firegel on my... Alright, so ignoring all that stuff for now, I'm going to do a git pull in this repo. This is what live... This is more like the pair programming. Thank you, Austin. I really appreciate it. We're going to do... I presume I don't need to reconfigure anything. We're just going to do make -j, not 22. That's a bit too much. nproc. And then sudo make install. Okay, so I think I've got the latest version that Austin's just pushed there. And hopefully I'm not irritatingly far behind you. We're going to go to... wherever I was before here, and run firejail, all of these things. Terminate orphans, deterministic exit code, profile, private. Okay, 1, 2, and this is definitely using ICC yet. 3, 4, 5. Whatever your hack was seems to have fixed the problem, I think, which makes everything we've just done moot, but moot in a good way, I hope. And I can only assume that somewhere in my home directory I've got let's have a look, Intel. Yeah, see, I bet you the thing that's different is the fact that my home directory has this. No, because it can't be, because the home directory is deliberately empty. Anyway, that looks great. That looks brilliant, Austin. You're a legend. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry to expose your address there, but it's a public project, I guess. Let's... Right. So, do we think that's good enough to go with, Austin? Let's just make sure I haven't got 1,000 firegels left to know, and a PS AUX grep. That looks good. Yeah. All right, we're going to do it. We're going to push this. We're going to give it a go. So for now, Austin, that branch will be what I do. Will be what I build from. So I could use a specific commit if you want to have the flexibility of checking and stuff without feeling like you might break Compiler Explorer. Or you could obviously make a new branch, but you could definitely. So someone's saying there, Intel Remote Mondi still not hidden renames. Yeah, locally I've never had the Intel Remote Mondi, so we're seeing like two different things in two different places, rather frustratingly. So I'm now going to try all those experiments on the remote site. So this is the staging environment. So let's go to /temp. Let's get remote. Git remote -v. I'm going to try and get this all done in the next 20 minutes. We're going to grab that. We're going to go back over here. Git clone that. Wunderbar. cd that. Git checkout. Feature C patch. Oops. Wow. Git checkout that. No. Git checkout features. Yeah, I'm sorry. I keep switching backwards and forwards. Of course, it's extremely confusing, and I appreciate your patience with this. And so it's right to ask these questions, and I'm just sorry that it's not easy to keep up with. Proc. How many procs has this got? Is it 4? Oh, 2? It's rubbish. Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. I really want to get this working, and then we got a clean sheet. Now, I've promised to do a C++ stream tomorrow, so maybe I'll, if this works out okay, maybe I'll do another live stream this evening. For those who follow me on Patreon or have survived, aware of the Patreon, you'll know that I do like a 1 evening a week Patreon session, which I've sort of guaranteed that I'll do. Now, all of the work that I'm doing, I think, pretty much obviates that. But if I have a chance this evening, I might spend some more time on this, and I might get the version out. Well, that'll be like 9 p.m.-ish, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Chicago time, which will be 5-ish a.m. GMT, which is of no use to pretty much anyone. But I'll see who else I have. Yeah, sorry, John. Again, I apologize, but okay. Let's install this. Sudo make install. Oh, lovely. That is a brilliant way of doing it. Thank you, Austin. So I'll need to paste that into right. That needs to go back. Oh dear, it's too many things. I'm changing too many things at once, which is always an absolute terror, right? Let's find setup.sh in here, and I'm just going to paste that for now in here. So this is git checkout that version there. And I know there's a git command to do it all in one, but I've been working with old versions of git that don't have that command line. So we're just going to get that. Brilliant. Okay, that's just for aid memoir. I'm not going to do anything with that right now because we need to test this. Okay, so we've made a new version of FireJail. The FireJail version here is hopefully that one we've just built. I guess we will be able to... Oh, right, Luca, that's great. We'll see. Gosh, you're going to go to bed, wake up and carry on talking to me. I can't make any promises. I will see because, wife, family thing. FireJail -- private mood, just to make sure they're getting an error. Yes. Private CWD. Yes, excellent. So we're running the patched version. Drum roll, drum roll. So we're going to search for ICC in my command line history, which I don't have. ICC, there it is. No such thing. Yes, because it's in compiler explorer.deploy. So, story so far, for those who understandably are confused by me switching between different machines and all of that, I'm now logged into the staging instance of Compiler Explorer in the world where currently the Intel Remote Mondi has been moved out of the way. And we're just going to check that everything works the way we want it to work, deterministically running the Intel compiler. So I'm going to run that and echo $thingy. And hang on, why is that not, what is the return code? Is it that one? Why can I not see the return code? I've forgotten how to use bash. Can someone help me? No, $* is all of the arguments, isn't it? and echo it's okay. Okay, so that is failing at the moment because we haven't given it all the magic command line flags, presumably. So let's start with these. So we're going to have dash dash private CWD dash dash private dollar question mark. Thank you. Echo dollar question mark. So private CWD, we're going to have, DC brain has reached frying point rather early today. Exec.js, deterministic exit code and terminate orphans. Oh, and I've missed a dash there. 0, wonderful. 0, wonderful. 0, wonderful. 0, 0 many times. I'm going to get rid of the debug now because we've been experiencing race condition related things, and this is not how I'll actually be running it when I run it in for real. It's going to actually be quiet. So we should just see a whole bunch of zeros and feel very good about the world. So this has proved to me that like no harm has been done. Let's now go back over to the admin node and go onto opt-intel, and we have move sudo move ISM moved out of the way to stop stupid Intel remote mondi to ISM. So it's back to where it should be. I'm going to go back over to our image. Actually, let's just close that one. We've got too many things open. Right, you go away. So we just have 2 shells now. We've got the one that's on the admin node, which has privileges to actually move things around on that network drive. And now we're going to run on the staging instance once more. And I'm going to run it again with dash dash debug, because what I want to see is it outputting the messages that tell me that Intel Remote Mondi kind of started up and then died and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll, if we develop confidence that that's working, we're going to go back to quiet, and then we're going to declare victory. I'm going to pull my t-shirt over my head and do like some kind of football victory slide on the thing behind me, the floor behind me. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6. Totally scientific, right? 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 times it worked in a row. Okay, for I in $seek 50, do that, done. I think we have a working solution. Well done, Austin. You are an absolute gentleman and a scholar. I'm assuming, sorry. You are a fantastic person. Thank you. That's great. Okay. So, in the remaining 10-ish minutes, I propose that we go over to, first and foremost, the changes we made here. This git clone is going to pick up the CE patch.1 version, which is going to now, I'm now going to check in. Yep, that worked a treat. And we don't have to move Intel ISM out the way, although it makes me heave to think about it even being there. But that's different, right? So we're going to go back to cd tilde dev compiler explorer. Yay! Yes, Pantufel, exactly. I don't think it will. I think it'll only improve them. But we'll see. So in the image directory, git status, git diff. So what we've done here, we're now using Austin's patch version, and that's great. So we're going to say git add dot git commit -m use CE patch version of FireJail. Lovely. Now I have to push this because when I do the remote build that I'm about to do, the remote servers actually pull from this repository. So I'm going to do make packer now, and as a Bears fan, that hurts me to type. For those not versed in American football, the Bears and the Packers are like a local rivalry of NFL. in as much as I understand anything about sports ball, I don't really, but I have picked up in the 8 years I've been here, I've absorbed a certain amount of cultural relevance, and an attempt to have something to talk about with the non-techie dads. All right, so that's going to go, and it'll take about 5-10 minutes. During the meantime, I'm also going to just see where we are with the differences over here. So now we've got a version of FireJail. Yeah, that would... yeah, I could do. It seems unfortunate. So I'm now going to add this and say, assume a patched CE specific version of FireJail to get a private CWD and ensure proper cleanup and exit code. Now, before I do that, I just remembered something else we did. So if we're going to go, if we look inside of compiler, explorer, image, no, LC. Oh no, I'm in the wrong project. Wrong project. How could I be confused by that? You think? So here, this comment here, blacklisting / compiler experiment to ensure the current working direction of the process is not valid when executed. We no longer require that. Also, good hygiene in general, even though the image is pretty much open source. The image is totally open source. Nothing in /compiler explorer image comes from anywhere other than Git. So this was just me writing a comment that's unjustifiable because I really didn't want to countenance the fact that it was a horrible hack. I'm going to kill this with extreme prejudice, which actually fixes half of the demanglers that would have been there before, which is dreadful. The Bears. Yeah, exactly. It is a team. The Cubs are one as well. Yeah, the Cubs are mentioned in Back to the Future Part 2, yes, because of a very long-standing badness. Okay, so we're adding that in as well. So we're changing a whole bunch of things at once, but who gives them? Okay, tests. Well, that's not really going to fix or anything. Let's see how we're doing here. All right, so we're still running Packer over here. It's read-only from FireJail, though. Yes, it is definitely read-only. It was just I was worried about whether or anything might, if we ever pull down some kind of secret value and then put it in a dot file or something. We don't. We don't put anything in that directory, so we're okay. It is definitely read-only from FireJail. So, for your sanity, can you test with the blacklist line removed? Yes, I can, sir. So, we are in this long sequence of doohickeys there. Oh, gosh, there we are. We're going to now monkey patch it on the machine, which is unfair to monkeys. But do you folks use that term, monkey patch? It's when we use it as like a term, or we. Historically, with the group of people I've hung around with for the last decade or so, we use it for like the shouldn't really do this, editing files on the servers themselves. Please don't ever do this kind of thing. Oh, it's not my wife back. FireJail standard.inc, and we're going to get rid of this here. Yes. I guess the only problem here is this is going to break staging as it is standing, but that's fine because no one's really running on it. Alright, I'm still declaring victory there, but I'll leave it going. Okay, so with FireJail is still... Packer is still going. We've pushed the images here, which means... Oh, no, we haven't. We've got it here. We've got to git push it. Alright, now we've got two things going on at once. We have a Packer build, which will build a base image of the environment that the compiler explorer instances are going to run off. We have Travis, which is building a version of Compiler Explorer that requires that particular instance to be there. I don't know where hack or temporary solution. We had a whole bunch of scripts that would scrape machine configs and go, if there is a change that has been pushed to production that has not been memorialized anywhere, then it sends an evil email to everyone telling us how bad we are. You are a bad program and you should feel bad. And that's definitely worth putting that kind of stuff in. All right, so we've got Travis here is building a version of Compiler Explorer that will expect a patched version of FireJail. On the right-hand side, we have a version of the base image being built. Right. Oh, thank you as well, Austin. Every third time I type the word Python, the G also ends on the end of the word Python, and I have never been able to understand it. But I have found 2 other programmers for whom have this problem. Yeah, see that? Yeah, monkey patching. What's the term they use? There's another term. There's like polyfills, but that's sort of different again. But this is like literally where you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna go in there and hack out the operator equals for this particular class and replace it with my own one that does the thing that I want it to do. Yeah, that's probably a more appropriate use of the word monkey patch. I think our usage is not canonical, certainly. I'm not ashamed to admit that before now I have hash defined public to be private before I've included vendor packages headers just to fart around with some of the things that they do. Obviously, horrible undefined behavior. Never do this. ODR violation, whatever. But certainly in the late 90s, when a vendor would ship something that had all the private things available to you, but you couldn't, but didn't have accesses, there were ways and means around it. Oh, we've generated so much mess. I'm going to tidy. Yeah, exactly. Anonymous Spock is saying the same thing. Yeah, I have used this actually to good effect, where I will make things protected and then inherit from them and then re-expose them as public for like test cases and things. It's not all good though. All right, so that is nearly done. At the end of this, we will get a nice long number, which I will paste into my configuration here. So let's get rid of that. And then I have a load of mess to clean up, which I'll do off camera. But it's mainly pursuant to the demanglers and not having them as part of the installation, which I think is a good move anyway. And the fact that they're part of the project is useful, and certainly useful if you're running them locally. But I agree with Pantufel. I think it's just the best thing is to have them on treat them like compilers. Yeah. Hey, Redacted. We're almost done here today. Oh, I've got the AMI number. I can paste that in while we're rating it for it to become ready. So Control-Shift-C. Don't accidentally press Control-C now. Let's update. I'm going to update both the staging in image and the beta image. So that's nearly ready to go. Oh, I've just scared the cat. My voice is starting to go. What am I missing? Nothing I'm missing over here. It's so exciting. It's not exciting. I'll tell you, while we're waiting, I can at least pick this up and try not to drop it anywhere. I can't actually see what you can see, so I'm going to have to move over to OBS on this side so I could got a somewhat live view. But you get to see, here is what the internet wants, which is a cat. So we can make it a cat video while we're waiting for things to happen. Hey cat. Sarafina. I assure you she's a real cat. She's doing a good impression of a stuffed animal right now, but okay. We're still waiting for the AMI. Come on, AMI. Alright, well, I can't hold that there forever, and I haven't got a good place to put it otherwise, so I'm going to put that back up there, and you can stare at me, I'm afraid. I'm not as interesting as a cat. Well, maybe I'm more interesting than a cat that doesn't move. Can I get the cat to play piano? That would be more ideal. I have a guitar down here. We could maybe get the cat to play the guitar. Suddenly 1,000 new viewers. Yeah, we are actually up to nearly 42 viewers there until a second ago. That's quite something. This AMI is taking a while, which is unfortunate. They normally... Yes, that's true. Totally ignoring me. Par for the course for cats. Alright, I have 5 minutes before children start erupting from the school opposite, including my own. Oh, cat has now decided to move. If you look behind me, you might be able to see. Oh, don't scratch that. Like she cares. Okay. Yeah, this is about as interesting as watching paint dry. Although actually someone sent me, when I last made a comment like that, someone sent me a video that explained how paint dries, and it was very interesting. So maybe it's not as even as interesting as watching paint dry. So in the meantime, let's think what we're going to do. We're going to be, I'm going to reboot the staging environment so it picks up this new image, and we're going to tell it to use the new version of, there it goes. We're going to tell it to use the new version of Compiler Explorer that we just built with Travis. Then we're going to test it, and if that all works, we're going to cheer and be happy. And I think I will still not necessarily push... No, I need to push this to production. We have a whole bunch of other fixes that are backed up behind this. There we go. Right. So we're going to then push that to production, and then I'll be finished for today. And at any second, my kids are going to turn up and make this all more complicated. Compiler Explorer image. What do I want to do? I'm going to go to Terraform, and I'm going to go Terraform. No, Terraform plan. So this will get everything ready. At least the cat isn't walking over your keyboard. You think it was sometimes when you see my typing. Oh, she's just got out, actually. Come on. Okay, new resource. That looks good. 2 to change, whatever. So now we're going to apply that. Apply to Planny. Excellent. Right. And then we're going to, and just to show you how this works, I'm going to actually stop and start the environment. So we're going to do CE environment stop, sleep 60, CE environment start. So this is stopping and starting the environment will mean that I get a completely new image started up. Normally, I try not to restart an image. I just I pause the service running on an existing machine, and then I restart the image and pull it, whatever. But the machine stays running. This time, I just definitely want the machine to die, so it picks up the new version. And while that's happening, you can see here, I'm logged into the machine. In a second, we're going to see it being killed. And of course, what I've forgotten to do is update the version. So while I'm going to create another window and go CE set, no, not set current, CE build set current latest. And this is in staging, and it's 4101 on master. That makes perfect sense to me. Cool. So let's just make sure that we are actually deploying the version we want. 4101, yes, 4101. Ruben put in that wonderful thing to just say latest, but it is lazy, and I like to check. Okay, so yes, now the connection was closed because the machine has gone away, and we will shed a tear for the wonderful work that it did for us in the last couple of hours. And now we have a capacity of 1 from 0. Somewhere I should have I got... No, I don't. I thought I had a AWS thing open. We can go and see it happening on AWS now. So we've asked to have a new instance given to us, please. Oh, well, now there's a nice cream van outside. EC2, yes, that's the one I want. Doo-dah, doo-dah. 5 running instances. This is good news. Oh, that might be a child at the door. No, it isn't. Staging. So this is the shutting down staging instance. Hopefully soon we should see that there is a starting up staging instance. What is this one here? Presumably that's going to be our starting up, because this one's initializing. It hasn't been tagged yet as staging, which it needs to be, or else I will lose track of which one it is. But I think this is the one we're going to be logging into in a second. So there it is in all of its glory. I need to sort out this public IP nonsense, because they all have public IPs right now and they don't need them. So the whole point of the admin node is to be the conduit by which we talk to the images that are hiding away in the background. Come on! CE instances status. This is going to give me some kind of errors, I'm sure. Running staging. Oh, there it is. So I should now be able to go over here and do CE instances login again. And if we're lucky... Okay, so we're onto the fresh new... I love the smell of a fresh new virtual machine. So filegl -- version, that's maybe the new one. How are we going to tell this one? We're going to say custom, no, we're going to say private CWD. Oh, hurrah! So let's go and see how it's starting up. Rlog syslog, and we can see somewhere in here, hopefully. Yep, it's running. Paper trail disabling further console logging because it doesn't want to log anywhere else. It's going to go to the log service as opposed to like filling up the hard disk. And if we now go to said log service, which is paper trail, and look for Amazon.staging down here. Amazon.staging. It's apparently started up, but oh, private must be specified before -- private CWD. That is very sad. That is very sad indeed. So I think we broke it. I was sure that we put private first. How did that? Does anyone know what I might have broken here? Let's have a look at exec.js and be sad. Yeah, look, it's afterwards. It's after private. Oh, Austin, I think maybe if I don't specify a private directory at all, like if I just do -- private, does that work? Thank you, redacted. So if I run firejail -- private private cwd ls, I see. This only works if I specify this directory here. So can I file that as a bug, Austin? We can probably fix that. I don't know if you have a thought about that. Oh, I've got to go and answer the door to my son. So 1 second. Okay. All right. So, Austin, if you are there, we might need to do another build of this and either support this as -- private cwd, or I mean, I don't have to do that. I can probably just for the sake of getting this working even remotely well. Let's go to .deploy. Then. Okay, Austin. I mean, don't feel bad, mate. This is fabulous. We want to look at etc. No, I'm going to actually edit the code in place, which, as we discussed earlier, is not actually monkey patching. This is no. Come on, brain. Oh, can you let Isaac in, please? Oh, two children, school directly opposite, and they both pick a different door to come in through. So I'm just going to hack the exec.js directly here to only put the private CWD if I have a custom CWD. Like that. For now. Just because I really want to do sudo service. I mean, the muktum-d doesn't help here because that's what. So if I just do -- private, then that's what firejail is doing. It's creating a temporary directory. But you're right. I could otherwise make a temporary directory myself and then just give it that temporary directory. But and I have processes which can go around and clean up those temporary directories. But you're right. I think fixing firejail is the right thing to do here if we can. So we're going to do compiler explorer stop. And then I'm going to do app.js -- env amazon -- env staging. We're just going to run it. Oh, gold. Yeah. Opt compiler explorer node bin node app. Cannot find. Oh yes. -- out. No, static out dist out, something like that. I have to try and remember the command line. Out dist. Hurrah. Without it, file jail. Oh, okay. Then I think probably an anonymous box solution is the right one. Then we'll give it its own. I definitely don't want it. I want an empty directory there. Copy bindings from your real home directory. Yeah, no, I like that. That makes more sense. Okay, I'll fix that myself on my side. So don't consider that an issue on your side, unless unless it makes sense purely from the point of view of an upstream patch where people might want that particular behavior. But this looks like it's now working well enough for me to say, like, I think we're on the right path. I'm going to spend some time working on this and the fix-ups for all of the other sort of messes that I've made, my little list of things that I've got here. But I'm going to be finishing up now before my wife comes home and says, "What the heck are you doing talking to yourself still when your kids are around?" Oh, good point. So, Austin, thank you so very much for all this work. This is really invaluable. I mean, this has given a new lease of life to the ability to do this jailing. So that's amazing. And yeah, for everyone else, thank you for watching, and thank you for all of the helpful tips in there. As I say, I might stream again a little bit later if I get as far as being able to turn on execution on the beta site. We'll see how I go, though. I don't want to get too far down that line. The reason I want to put it on the beta site is because I want to be able to quickly turn it off if there's a giant security hole. So it needs to live on the beta site for a while before I can put it on the mainline site. Otherwise, I've exposed a new feature to a whole bunch of people and I might have to turn it off. So that's the theory behind that. And then tomorrow, my hope is to spend the afternoon from about midday onwards C++ live streaming as opposed to all of this nonsense. But I might see you later, Luca. If not, or I will see you another time. But thank you, all of you, for your comments as always. Please subscribe if you want to be notified about these things coming up. This one was not as joyful as I was hoping it was going to be, but we're very, very close to something that is more working. We're very, very close to a working solution now, even though it's on the live site. So thank you for your time, everyone, and I will see you again soon, I hope. Oh no, well, all right, okay, there I am saying the goodbye. Let's just at least get the golden ra of seeing the staging environment work. And there it is, and it's doing some things. Let's go and pick an Intel compiler. Intel, C++, Intel, somewhere, 1301. There it is. Let's get 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there it is. It is going to work. It will work just fine. I think we're going to be fine. Everything's just going to be brilliant. So thank you again. And I will tidy up all of the loose ends that have come up from today, push some updates, and then hopefully turn something on this evening. So bye, everyone.